More about that in a moment. Let's talk about dinner parties first, though, because if you are invited to one, well, maybe beforehand you'll have thought carefully about what to wear, what wine, if at all, you might take along, what the food might be like, and perhaps worked out who will be driving. But what about the subject of the conversation at the dinner table? Well, a survey out this week asked over 2,000 people what they thought were the taboo subjects over dinner. The All About You survey by O2 revealed that while talking about our sex lives may cause us to choke on the chorizo, religion and politics, it seems, are much more acceptable. I've been speaking to James Patterson from O2 about the idea behind the survey.
We ran this survey as we want to make sure we understand our customers and how they use our products in everyday life. We now live in an age where technology is starting to understand us, to predict our behaviour and change the way we use it. We wanted to see if our relationship with the people around us was changing too, if the things we traditionally talked about and the people we traditionally talked to still held true. We wanted to see if social media has caused a serious social shift.
And what did you find, and what did you compare it to?
People are very open about talking about a range of subjects, but while nearly 40% will discuss everything with their friends, around the dinner table it's a lot less than that. We're seeing that while we're discussing more, it's with friends that we're pulling closer as opposed to family.
So it depends who's around that table.
It seems that although we may post very personal news on Facebook, the traditionally awkward questions from your mum over Sunday lunch are still just as awkward.
Now, isn't that interesting? Because people divulge so much about themselves, don't they, on Facebook and on Twitter?
Absolutely. Religion and politics now appear very much acceptable, for instance. And we've seen a big liberalisation over the past few years driven by the ease of sharing your views and finding out other people's. Websites now routinely run surveys to help you find what political party you agree with and then tweet the results. It's a big shift. And while not being entirely honest on a census form decades ago would have been inconceivable, the growing number of people quoting their religion as Jedi will certainly entertain the researchers of the future.
So there are still some subjects which are very much taboo around the dinner table?
I think so. For instance, I couldn't see myself discussing the Kama Sutra over a curry with my mum anytime soon.
But with your friends?
Potentially. I could certainly see putting topics that I wouldn't discuss with my parents up on Facebook, or having a quiet drink down in a pub and discussing things that might traditionally not have been discussed there.
I thought that the subject of most dinner parties, especially in the London area, let's say, or perhaps in big cities in general, was house prices. And yet, that is on the taboo list that you have drawn up.
Yes, I think it's very similar with house prices and the state of your own finances. Words like double-dip recession and the global slowdown, they've entered people's everyday language now, as has housing prices. People are very comfortable bemoaning the state of the country's finances, but bemoaning your own is still a very taboo subject.
Now that's interesting, because perhaps I'm thinking back to the times when house prices were going up in leaps and bounds, and people perhaps were bragging about that, were they?
Absolutely. People are being very hard on the government for what they see as reckless spending, so it may be that they are not looking to open themselves up to similar discussions.
And so perhaps wouldn't admit either to how much they earned or how much they spent on holidays or on a new car.
With the era of austerity linking up with an era of openness, we can talk about the country being austere, but perhaps not talking about yourself and how you manage your personal finances in case someone else is having a very different situation.
So what's your favourite dinner party discussion?
I personally am in a new relationship and enjoy talking about that probably far too much. My friends know my girlfriend's name much more than they probably should, and the fun I'm having in a new relationship and living in a new place is probably all I talk about nowadays.
And do people tell you, shut up, James?
Not so much, but then I do have very nice friends.
And that's James Patterson from O2 talking about that survey.